All right. It's 5:30, so we're going to get started here. It is September 19th, and this is the Minnetrista City Council work session. Present this evening are myself, Lisa Whalen, I'm the mayor. Council members present are Pam Mortensen, John Chumperlin, Ann McGregor, Kathleen Refkin. Staff present, we have Director of Public Works, Gary Peters, Ali Pulfos, City Clerk Don Motzko, Jasper Krugel, and Brian Grimm. And you all know your titles, so I won't repeat them. So, except for I took Gary's. So with that, we have three items here: Water Fund, Emerald Ash Borer, and the PTO discussion. So we're going to start with our Water Fund budget discussion. Brian?
All right. Thanks, Mayor and Council. And I'll try to be succinct because I know Gary will probably want to talk about trees. But no, I'll give this the time it's worth, which the Water Fund is obviously one of our most important funds, and there's been a lot of activity in the last several years, and there will be a lot of activity for years to come, as you probably saw with our rate study this year, as well as just how we have different projects in the queue for the next couple of years or so here. So yeah, I attached the recent water utility study again, so it's nice to get that updated. And I guess thanks again to the council for approving that and authorizing that. It helps make my job easier for going forward, because the last one we had done was about 10 years before that, and things evolve and change over time. And spreadsheets, even the best spreadsheets, can get a little bit modified over the years. So. Basically, what's attached in addition then to the water rate, the utility study, is a draft budget for 2023, as well as a year to date. So I'll touch on each of those reports in a second here. And I did give the update as far as the cash balance in the water fund right now. It's a little over $900,000, and we should finish at that or a little higher, because we've made all our debt payments for the year, and we'll have our third quarter billing going out. So we should, if anything, hopefully add to that a little bit between now and year end, and probably finish around $1 million if I had to, just as an estimate. One of the things I guess to reiterate is through that water rate study, we're looking at a 14% increase to the water utility rates, as well as the water area charge and the connection charges, and that's been reflected. That was, I think, on page 17 of the packet, where I showed just a quick summary of the current rates and then what the new rates would look at. I know the rate study has that information in a different format also. A few of the other items just to note in the memo before jumping into a few of the documents is since that water utility rate study was done, the water main in the Morningview area, we've had the feasibility report come in, so that could be a little higher than what was originally estimated, but as that keeps moving forward, that'll be flushed out through the plans and specs process and bidding, obviously, as we keep moving forward. As far as the timeline of what's in the 2023 draft budget, it more includes the water main in the Morningview area and the wells. I think the water treatment plant will most likely be more in 2024, I think, is per the updated timeline. So that's where you'll see the way those costs have been reflected. So we may have to do some bonding in 2023 for more the wells and the water main in Morningview, but then bond for the water treatment plants in the following year would be the tentative timeline. And then lastly, I think I touched on, started to talk about the fees. And as far as the fees, the Woodland Cove, the small caveat is some of the phases that have been approved already have a different water connection rate than the other ones at large, I guess, and coming forward, just based on the master development agreement out there. So that's not the 3,100 or 3,600 proposed across the board. So there is that slight deviation. I guess I can.
Brian, do you have an updated amount for? So we have 1.9, almost 2 million. It says to maintain. It's planned for capital expenditures in 23, but I think the water line, the water trunk line in Morningview and Eastview, that's going to be more like 2 million.
Yeah, so that's where if you go to the the budget on page 13, and I tried to reference that in the memo. I think when the rate study was being done over the summer, we thought the water rate was going to be closer to $1 million-ish. I guess that was the early estimates. But now, so if you look at the top of page 13, that improvements line item, I've plugged in, at least for a draft budget, $3 million, with probably a couple million for the water main in Morning View, and then the wells could be $1 million or so. I mean, I know we're still even looking into an AE2S will weigh in on what we're going to do with the wells. So that's basically an estimated $3 million right now between those two items.
For 23.
For 23, yes.
And that would only be for the potentially rehabilitation of well number 4? That wouldn't even be for drilling wells 10 or 9 and 10.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I guess, to be determined. So it's hard to say for sure. I guess if we actually drill a couple wells, you could be looking at $3.5-4 million for a total line item. It could be drilling new wells could be, I don't know, $1.5 million, $2 million. I don't know. I haven't drilled a well for a while, I guess. Or you're probably
what, $300,000-400,000 a well, probably.
Most likely.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So that number could go up a bit depending on what we find out through AE2S, and obviously it would be the offset would be bonding for a little more of that, because we wouldn't have the cash on hand to do that. You can see we're down at that $900,000, $1 million item. So. I guess that's a good start. I guess if I just maybe back up a page or basically a page to
which page?
Page 12. As far as the sales, I mean, until we really get this third quarter billing, it's going to be a little hard to know how that adjustment of rates we did in March, April. We'll see how that is. So I've tried to use the trend and plug in, about 1.2 million for water sales there. The other big items then are a little lower, the water connection fees and area charges, sort of used based on the number of homes and the adjusted fee, and tried to get an estimate there as far as a conservative estimate. I know we've gone over 100 homes these last few years, and we could go back down to 75, 85. It's hard to predict. And then you can see the line item there for a revenue bond of $3 million. So that's sort of that offset there at the top of page 12. So basically, we'd have about a projected, 1.8 million of water revenue and about, 3 million of bonding would be our revenue sources. And then if you keep going, you can see on page 12, it's more of our operations costs are towards the top. They're the salaries, and then down, the biggest items are the salaries. If you go down to the middle of the page, that 227, the utility system maintenance, it costs a decent amount for the chemicals from the treatment plant and all that kind of stuff. So that's probably our second biggest item. And then after that is the utilities, electric to run the plants and stuff, and as well as just our operations and towers and stuff. It costs a decent amount too. So you can see there at the bottom of the page the expenses for just the operations, more about at $930,000 roughly. The other equipment is that we're doing that meter. It would be year 2 of changing out all those meters that we authorized earlier this year. So and then if you go on to page 13, which we were just on, you can see where the improvements we talked about, that $3 million plus or minus, depending on what we actually end up, where we get to for 2023 and what we decide to all do there. And then you can see our current debt payments. We're about at that, $930,000 in that debt service section there. So that's our existing debt. Obviously, we could be looking, or we will probably be looking at adding to that in the next few years here, and that was taken into account during our rate study process. So the next couple pages were more year-to-date updates. So page 14 is our revenue through basically mid-September. I always like to look at, where we're at 2022 versus 2021. So you can see in that water sales, that third line item down, we are pretty similar to last year. Third quarter will be telling always, as far as, once we have those bills out at the end of the month here. Everything else seems to be trending, pretty well there from budget to actual. We can see we've transferred in some money at that last line there was through the ARPA funds or whatever. So
I'm sorry, Brian.
sorry.
I'm not following here. You're saying 22 year to date
Yep.
Water sales is $1,036,000.
Budgeted.
Oh, budgeted.
Yep.
Okay.
Third column.
And then the third column over
Is
would
the
be-
actual.
is the actual year to date. So we're about that 670,000.
I see.
there.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
And then then the column after that is year to date, balance when you subtract that from the budget with our third
Right.
and fourth quarters. And then the far right column is more of a good way to compare. That's where we were at the same point last year. So last year we were at 668,000.
Okay.
670. It's even a good way to look if you go a couple line items down. Water connection charges, we budgeted 275. We're about at 225. Last year we were at 192, so we were a little better there as far as. And we have done pretty well on permits so far this year, so we're still tracking good there. And then the area charges are always hard. They sort of ebb and flow, obviously, depending on what phase of it. A lot of it's been out in Woodland Cove, the different phases there, but there's been other developments too.
Yeah, but there's not many on the horizon,
No.
so we have to keep that in mind.
Yeah. I mean, I think as we were talking, maybe as far as how the different phases have the different connection rates. Yeah, whenever 10th edition comes in, that probably would be our main.
Right.
And I think get some. I believe we're getting some area charges and stuff with the Mockenthuns and Doran.
I would think so.
Yeah, I'm almost positive we are.
Right.
I'm talking with David.
And there'd
so-
be connection charges per unit, right? Or is it per building? I mean, it would be per unit, right?
Per unit.
Per unit.
Yeah. So I think so we'll have some of that actually will probably hit in 2022.
Three.
Or 23. Yeah, I guess sometime
Yeah, because they're
between-
just doing grading now, so I think most of those charges would come in 23,
Three.
right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep. So.
Yeah, okay.
Other than maybe
it would
the
all
area
depend
charge.
when the permit comes in.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So.
But those numbers you don't have in here.
Correct. Yeah, those wouldn't. Yeah, I remember.
Oh, you do.
This is more the residential. The only thing on the area charge is more an estimate based on what we think is going to come in or whatever. But connection charges, pretty much using a lot of times just that 75, 80 units a year, just more of a flat number based on
I
our,
see. Yeah, okay.
on our annual
Yeah.
charge. So if we do get some of this, could help us go above and beyond, but just being conservative until things are seen through, I guess, and stuff. So. But good question, yep. And then I just started to touch on that last item is just that it says operating transfer. That was more the share of the ARPA funds that were moved to the water fund there. So
And those
That's
are
one.
included in the 902,000.
yeah,
that we
so that's
have,
already there. So yeah.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, we are, and we've spent. It was a planned spend. And we didn't. When we did the water tower and bonded for that 2020, we planned on spending down $500,000 in cash. I'm not sure if I maybe would have done it a little differently, but it's thought. We're planning and going forward or whatever. There, so. And then page 15 is the same type of thing. It's on the expenditure side. It's just more the where we're at year to date. I don't think anything sticks out. The only thing that probably changes a little bit is some of the improvements at the top there. We've still got some dollars. We haven't made our final payment on the water tower, and there's some things there that haven't been paid yet. So
Are those funds in a separate or a different account? Because we bonded for the water tower, right?
yeah. So they'd be sitting in the fund balance. Everything would be reflected.
So the 902 or whatever we have in the fund balance, that is all of the money that we've gotten for the water tower bond.
Yeah.
is
That money
there?
is applied. Yeah, there. So
Okay.
it doesn't go to a separate like a street fund. A lot of times we set up
Wait,
a separate
why
fund.
not? Why wouldn't you separate it out?
For per GAP and GASB, like the government accounting standards,
Right.
for enterprise funds, which is like water, sewer, and stuff,
Right.
it all has to go into one fund and be like basically self-sufficient. Versus for like governmental funds, you can set up a separate project fund
Huh.
for it. So it just has to do with
Okay.
governmental accounting standards, really.
Because
Versus-
do we then know, because we don't know how much we have left over or shortfall for the water
then we
tower
will,
project
yeah,
is,
once
in
the
terms of
water-
how much we bonded for?
Yeah. When we will, we've got the pay estimates on the contract, and I think we've came in fine. I think we have like 100,000 left to pay on it or something roughly, so we've tracked. I think we're going to come in good there. And when that final payment's made, we'll give a quick update as far
Okay.
as where we came in on
That
the
would be good.
project. Yep,
Okay.
so we can do that.
And then, so not just in terms of the estimated project costs, but what did we bond for And then what did we pay
Oh,
for?
sure.
How much did we pay for it?
Because we'll obviously have it, because like I said earlier, we'll
Right.
have a deficit, 'cause we bonded for like 2 million, but we plan to spend about 2.5 million, because we planned on spending down
The
500,000.
500, right.
Yep,
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
Um,
It just would be nice to know, I think.
Yep, no, I think that's good. Yeah, it'd be good to update. So, yeah, I mean, on the expenditures, the only thing at the bottom of page 15, I think, and me and Gary have talked as far as whether we need to bump up a little more. I think just with all the water activity over the years, I think last couple of years, we've probably gone over a little bit in budget. We budget, they split their time between multiple, departments, and then maybe they spend a little less time in streets, a little more in water. So it's not uncommon, and we keep looking at that every year as far as just with some of obviously the water treatment plants being a new line of service 4 or 5 years ago, things you get a better handle once you have a trend line or whatever. So.
And now, as we go on from year to year now, too, as we grow, we're going to need. We had to do more sampling now,
Right.
So now we're sampling 5 days a week, and we're pulling more samples than we did because of our growth. So that'll continue to, as we get bigger, it'll just keep continuing to rise.
When you say sampling, do you do just at the treatment plant, or where do you? Or
Treatment plant hydrants throughout the system. We have to make
Okay.
sure we're keeping our fluoride and chlorine residuals at the farthest points and then
Okay.
at midpoints.
Okay.
So we have several different ones. So throughout, we have our testing station that we're putting out now too, but we test from several different hydrants throughout town just to, random sampling around just to keep the area.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone has any other question on the expenditures. I think we're running okay there for the year. And then the last page on page 17 is I just did a quick summary, a cut and paste of our 2022 rates that we made the adjustment to the residential back in March or there. And then what the proposed rates would look like. And then I have the water charge and the water connection also listed there after the three groups, the residential, commercial, and schools. And then the same for 2023, adding in 14%, I guess, across the board there. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. I know, the school tiers came up in the past as far as, why that, there's some huge usage, like second, third quarters for some of their facilities as far as, obviously the football, soccer fields and different things. And I guess if the council ever, would want to look at that, I guess that's something we could do as far as, knowing, then obviously the commercial, we don't have a ton, but now we're starting to, if we obviously get the Mock and Thunes facility on board at some point, that would be a new commercial building within the city.
Why wouldn't the commercial be more than the residential? See, it says, so for over 65,000 gallons in residential, it's $12.83 per thousand, but in commercial, it's $8.20 per thousand.
Well, I think, and I think they used to be, and then I think just with the irrigation season coming up in March, I think we just focused, we adjusted the residential
Right.
tiers back in March, but we didn't do a fee schedule amendment. I guess to me, it probably would make sense if we'd want to just adjust them all the same. Would that be something
Yes.
the council would want to do?
And I think we need to readjust why we have a separate commercial and schools. I think they need to be one. I don't know why we break out the school separately. Mound doesn't. And then I would adjust the gallons too.
And I think, the only thing I can remember back, and it's been a while since we set these for the schools and the commercial, I think we tried to look at where during the summer months where entities started
Right.
to hit different thresholds. So I think the school can go over 1 million gallons on some of the different sites. So I think that was the philosophy back 10 years ago. Whether that still is the same philosophy, obviously, I don't know, and that's for the council to decide, I guess.
The only thing is, if the school, the people in the West Tonka district pay for that anyway.
Yeah, but it's a bigger pool than just Minnetrista.
Yeah. Yes.
So
yeah.
I think we need to put them together, the commercial and the schools. Because other than in the summer, the school will fall under, depending what we set the ranges for, it'll be normal, just like any other commercial business. And
Yeah, I'm
we
not
pointed
sure
out
why
before,
it
they're
was-
using our really expensive, nice treated water to water their fields. So
That's evolved and changed since probably 2012. Obviously, that changes came into play, the water treatment
Yeah.
plants or whatever. So, yeah, I don't know if that would be something maybe you'd want staff to bring back some information and try to get like a, I don't know, is it a blended 0 to 400,000 or something, and then 4 to 9? And
I mean, I don't know where
know.
they came up with the 0 to 80,000 gallon. I mean, what's
I think
the-
it was, I mean, there's only a handful of commercial properties in the city, and I think back in the day it was like, where are these entities starting to hit breaks of where the summer use, it's obviously to try to decrease, a lot of it's stemmed to irrigation
Incentive,
and
yeah.
conservation and stuff. So, yeah, and some of those numbers probably have, I know they've been the way, they haven't changed probably in 8-10 years or whatever. So,
Well, why don't you bring that back? Because I think we should take another look at it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to blend it. I think the water commercial / school should be like 0 to 50 for the first one.
oh, for the first.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they need to be that high, because when you pulled the school water usage for me, other than if you get rid of the football fields, most of them would be under 50, and even more of them would be under 100, pending when they use it. So, I mean, I don't think it needs to be that high for the first bracket, and then the second bracket, I would put like 125 or.
And then just do 125.
Yeah, and then 125 and
above,
over, and then that's what they're paying, and then they pay the same rates as the residents do for the 513, the 713, and the 1283.
I'm fine with that, I guess.
I mean,
Council.
because I can't imagine Mac
What,
and Thunes and that are
what
gonna
are
be
their,
using
I
hundreds
don't,
of
Mac and
thousands.
Tunes, it wouldn't matter because they
Yeah.
haven't been here, so we
Yeah.
don't have any history on that. My only question is, what does that do for the school rate, and how does that? Because
mean-
they also have a budget, and they don't have the flexibility of adding to their budget. That's the only thing. So
Yeah,
I'd
they-
like to kind of figure out what is their current usage and how, and kind of their bill, so to speak. And if we adjust it, as Kathleen is saying, how would that affect their bill?
Okay, yeah, we could run
Just
that.
look
I think
at
that's
that.
fair
Because
to them.
if nothing else, I'd like to say, okay, heads up, people, this is what it's going to. But the problem is, they've already set their budgets for 23, just like us.
Yeah, they changed, they can plan for July 1st of 2023.
Right.
Would be there, yeah.
Well, and that's their high usage period. So,
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
that's
because if you look at most of their numbers in 2021 for the first period, they used 95,000 gallons at the Hilltop, 300,000. So that's high for anywhere at the 5905 Sunnyfield. The 5910 Sunnyfield is 14,000, so not a big deal. They didn't use any water first quarter for the football fields. It makes sense. It's under
Right.
snow. The 5901, I'm assuming, is the soccer fields. They didn't use any. And then the other 5901, they used 45. So that would still be under the low gallons amount set.
One thing to add too is this might resolve itself in the future. There's a well on the school property that we had a meeting with Kevin a week ago that they might be able to use for irrigation. Pretty large
Yeah.
well. So
Okay.
there'll likely be council action maybe as soon as October 3rd to
Okay.
kind of give the ownership of that well that we thought was abandoned or to the school, so then they can do with it what they want. So they might be able to use that for irrigation. So some of those high usage numbers might kind of go away maybe in the next year or two. It might take a couple years to get that system built, but there might be some lower usage there from the school too.
How would that work? Would they buy the well from us then?
Really, it would just be a transfer of the ownership, because right now the cost of the city, the burden is the potential to have to abandon it. That gets passed to the school for no cost, really. So Kevin thought it was abandoned and actually decommissioned, filled with bentonite clay, but we did some research and it's active. It's a pretty big well. It could more than handle all of their irrigation needs, but it's been there since 2008. So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it was drilled as a test well, and I don't know why they opted to do it there. It was a really bad location. There's no way we could put our well house there. And then they opted for a well site in front of Hilltop there and on Game Farm for well 2A.
Right.
So, but that well's been sitting there. We all thought it was capped. So, but it is open and active, so
Would that interfere with our city well, though?
no.
Okay.
Nope, it's far enough away and
Okay.
it would be fine.
And I think technically the school owns it. It's there. It's on their property. We just drilled it. We're just kind of transferring the rights to have to maintain and the ownership of it as far as the PCA, the
Right.
DNR, the Department of Health. If anything goes wrong with it, we don't want to have to pay for that as a city if the schools can
Okay.
use it.
But yeah, if they use it for and they probably will only use it for irrigation, is my guess.
What aquifer is it in?
It's in the TCW
Yeah.
on that side of town.
So that's not in our numbering system, it was just out there.
It was just out there. I mean, everybody thought when they brought it up, I'm like, well, we thought it was capped, and nope, it's an active well, and it's still in our name, which I can't believe that neither the DNR or Department of Health has brought it up to us before. So,
So everybody forgot about it.
yep, except Kevin.
How soon could that be done?
What's that?
How soon could that be done?
They're actually getting it videoed to see what kind of condition the casing and stuff is in, how much work it would be. It'd probably take them a good year to a year and a half to get everything kind of settled and figure out how they would pump their water around and pipe it and stuff. I mean, there's a lot of work into it, so it would probably be for sure a good solid year to two.
Okay.
That'd be a good savings for them.
Well, not
Well-
only for them, but I mean, it'd be nice for us too for our water usage. I mean, that
Right.
would really take us down in water usage. So
Yeah.
it would, we asked for losing revenue, but at least from the DNR standpoint, for how much water we were pumping out of the aquifer, it would really help our numbers.
Do they need to get a permit?
They will. They will
Okay.
need to get everything done. So
Yeah, okay. I mean, will they get an allocation as well?
yes,
Okay.
yep. No matter what whenever you drill a well, you'll get an allocation for especially
For commercial.
For commercial,
Not residential.
correct.
Yeah,
I mean, for
yeah.
something like that, yes, you'll have to have
Okay.
that. So
Okay. Okay.
Probably
So,
bring back some
bring back-
information on what that blended, or that tier for commercials and schools, that,
Right.
we'll try that, set 0 to 50, 51, 25, and then up to 12.
Okay.
Okay, will do. Any other questions?
I just have a couple.
Sure.
On page 12,
Okay.
under water area charges,
Yep,
in 2021, the budget was about 100, almost 196, but the actual was 344.
yep.
Was that because of the drought?
No, that just had to do with when different of those phases probably came in most likely Woodland Cove. I mean, David probably would be a list off, but
Yeah.
we had
That's a lot.
more development come in for those per acre charges that came in for final plat. So
Yeah.
it's always hard to project, especially with these Woodland Cove ones. They almost seem to, gas
They
pedal a
built
little
really
bit.
fast last year.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
probably what it is.
They probably figured 75 and they came in at 140, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And the acreage was more than you expected.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the only other thing on page 12, under other equipment way at the bottom,
Oh,
is there some way you could put in parentheses, because the $200,000 is going to be there for a couple of years, 3 years, right?
Oh, yeah, for those meters,
Yeah.
a couple of years. I think.
Because that's a big amount.
Yeah.
Could you put in parentheses new meters maybe?
Oh, yeah, that's
Or
fine.
even have a separate line item.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would put 200,000 for meters and then put other equipment. So you'd have two
Yeah.
line
Right.
items.
Okay. Yep, that
Yeah.
sounds good. All right, no. Anything else? Good. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. So Emerald Ash Borer, tree replacement policy.
wonderful subject that we knew was coming, and it's unfortunately here. So, with it being that we do have the EAB in our city, that we're going to need to look at a tree replacement plan. So, as we remove these diseased trees, what's going to take their place? So, I won't go into too much depth. I pretty kind of try to explain it to you guys here, but we are going to need some kind of evaluation done. And Jasper worked on some plans before, and he contacted AmeriCorps or Impact now to find, which he's worked with in the past, to see if they had any applications open for the Forest Corps members. They did. They found us a great member. Lila Beck was hired by them. She will start here October 24th. She will be doing her tree count on all our boulevard and park trees. Not only that, but she will look at the condition of the trees, what's the size, what type. They even try to break it down as far as subspecies. So, like, is it like your maples has so many different types. Is it a Fiesta? Is it a Sienna Glen? So she'll kind of work on all that. So we're happy to have her. She grew up here in Minnetrista off of Cairo 26, so she's kind of familiar with the area and stuff, and she's happy to be back doing that. So very minimal stuff that she'll need. A lot of it we have already in place. So I'm excited to have that done. Once we get that tree count, then we'll kind of know where we're sitting with exactly how many ash trees we're going to be looking at. Currently, we need to replace 32 ash trees that were removed, 30 of them along Antler Way, and then one up on Covey Trail and one on Gander Lane that we took out. So we kind of sat down, myself, Nick Redkey, and Trevor Barrett to kind of talk about trees. We went through the tree inspector classes now. Been doing that for years, and kind of what's the best trees around. Kind of called around to some of the nurseries. The list that I have here is, it's not perfect. It's kind of what we kind of came up with as nice trees. They're in no list of order, but probably alphabetical kind of sorted. So really these type of variety trees are really great. We want to try to definitely stay away from one species of tree again so that we don't end up with, if something happens, which is going to come down the road, mark my words, the maples will be next because they're so abundant and they've been grafted so many times, something's going to come after them. So we want to kind of stay away from that. That's why I like to give the variety. So the questions that we really have, and we're going to need some direction from, are there, looking at the tree list, I can answer questions on that first if you want. Are you happy with that tree list? Do you want to make any changes, additions?
Yes.
That type of stuff. So
Gary, couple things. Oak, I don't think you should have that on there. One, they're really slow growing, number one. Number two, they are very susceptible to oak wilt. So I would take them off. That would be one of the things I would say.
Actually, the bur oak is actually really good against.
But they're also very slow growing.
The bur oak's not so bad. The red oak, yes, but I can take them off. I mean, if we want to eliminate the oak, I mean they're a 300-year tree. That's why we like them.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely. I mean, I would definitely think about putting them in. We're looking at putting some in some parks too to kind of combat it. So I mean, if it's all right, we'll put them in our parks then at least. And I mean, they get acorns eventually. They're kind of dirty that way, but as far as it goes, I mean, they're a great cultivator in a park setting. So, but we can take them off that list.
For sure, the red oak. The bur oak aren't that attractive. So let's see.
Got some right out here, so
Yeah.
down between us and the police station. So I don't know. I mean,
All right.
nope. Keep going. I mean, the hornbeam is going to be a tough one.
The ginkgo tree, you have to make sure that they're males.
Correct, the seedless
Okay.
variety. That's why I have seedless down there.
Seedless, right.
And that's why there's another one, the Centon, what is it? Century. Oh, I can't think of what it is. But the Century other one's another one that's a good one. I can't think of the exact name of it right now. But there's another one that's really a good ginkgo. They're kind of kind of that middle variety tree. I mean, they're not going to get
They're
super
not
tall
huge,
or
right.
wide, but they're
wide,
very
right.
nice tree.
Right.
So, but yes, definitely male seedless only. That's why I put that down. So,
You know what happened in Denver with the ginkgo trees, right?
yep.
They planted the female trees and they smell.
Smell horrible.
They smell horrible. Yeah. I mean, they smell like, they.
The fruit does, I should say, not the
Yeah,
tree itself,
right.
but the fruit
So
does.
anyhow, you want to make sure that they're male. All right.
Well, they look pretty.
Yeah, they're a pretty tree.
Yeah, they're very nice. I mean, you get the basic blah yellow color in the fall, but so
So the only ones I can think of. Alder, of course. I mean, yeah.
alders are great if you have a lot of. I mean, that's why I have it on there
Right.
because they're like a lot of moisture. So if you have lower, wetter areas,
Right.
they're really good for that. So, like I say, the hornbeam's a really great tree. I mean, that thing is. There's nothing that really kills it, but they're tough to come across. So I mean, they very limited around. So of course, there's the linden. I picked the American linden. I mean, there's also the century linden. I mean, there's the green spire. I mean, there's plenty of different varieties of the linden tree. They're nice. They're really, they're kind
Right.
of an all-around great tree. It's also
Yeah.
considered a basswood.
Right.
They do have a little bit of a fruit on them, or like almost a nut letter, whatever you want to call it. But they're a little bit softer. They're not so they are a little more susceptible to get older to some wind damage.
The only thing is, Gary, I'm not sure on some of these. We want to make sure, too, that they're somewhat drought resistant. Do you know which
Most
ones
of these
more?
are.
I think
Most of these will
most of
be.
them are, but-
That's why I mean they're boulevard trees. That's why we kind of specifically went through and started really hunting for good boulevard trees. So,
Okay.
one of the things that we're up against in some of these areas too is that they're planted so close to the road, they're only 2 feet off the road. So what happens is the root systems go down and out, but they get to that rock base of the road and they turn around on themselves because they're going to try to find these spots. They start to girdle. That's why these trees that you see out in Hunters, they're 20, 25 years old. These things should be 3 times their size, and they're not. I mean, mine in my yard are 18 years old, and they're at least double that size already. I mean, just because of that lack of growing area, probably not planted the best. I mean, probably wasn't a lot of dirt put in with them, a lot of good soil. But still, those trees should be 2 to 3 times what they are out there, which is really sad to see. The maples are doing well because a lot of them look like they put in, a lot of the autumn blaze and stuff, which are very nice, but they're all part of the silver maple. They're grafted with
Right.
silver maples.
Yeah.
And shallow root systems. That's why you're seeing we're replacing a lot of sidewalk sections out there and curb because of the roots, shallow roots. So that's why I kind of stay away with what we picked here is more the sugar variety, which is a little bit better. These are really nice. The Fall Fiesta, the Autumn Radiance. There's some other ones too we could add to that list if we can't find these. So
Okay. That's all, the only ones I.
do you have any other ones you want to add? I mean, you want to see it's a different. We have there's the mountain ash, which is a different type of ash tree altogether. It's a nice, but it does have a kind of a fruit on it, but it's a completely. We have them already in Hunters, so we could add some of them in there if you wanted to. I mean, I'm trying to think of some good varieties out there. But to me, you could go with the hackberry too if you want. We could add that to the list if you
Yeah,
want to.
hackberry might be a good one.
We could add that with no problem.
Yeah.
Those are pretty abundant. We have them in our parks already too. So, but yeah, because what the plan then is, we'll get this, figure out what's out there too and stuff. But once the list is done, we'll be way before this. But as we go, then we can work off that list and see. But for the interim, we'll just go at this. The other thing would be right now, while we're talking trees, what size are you looking to put in? Do you want 1.5 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch? You get up and, the bigger the tree,
The bigger the tree, the
the
slower
more expensive it's going to be,
and the slower
and
it's
the
gonna
harder
grow
it's going to
anyway.
be to establish.
Right.
For me, I would be at that 1.5 inch, 2 inch.
2 inch, right. Yeah.
Is what I look for. If that's agreeable, we can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you get any bigger than that, and really what happens is they kind of get stymied anyway in terms of their growth. I've seen trees where they're 12 feet tall and you plant them, and there's 13 feet 5 years later. You plant an 8-foot tree and it's 13 feet tall 5 years later. So just because they kind of get shocked, and then it takes them longer to adapt to their new location, if you will. So 2 inch, I wouldn't go any bigger than 2 inch.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We can do that. So, unless we come across some really good deals, we'll go a little bigger. But, on that, if you look at what we have a bunch of maples that we planted on North Lyle Park a bunch of years ago. We got a great deal on those. They were 4 inch. Dave and I went and looked at them. They cut us a great deal because they wanted to get rid of them. We got them planted for $350 each. It was a great deal. But they are slow growing. They are finally starting to take off now. It's been 4 or 5 years, so.
But Gary, on here you said allow the affected property owners to choose a tree. The problem with that is, what if everybody wants maples, for instance?
Well, that's what we have to kind of spell it out to them and say, look, these are the varieties you have. And Jasper had this conversation. We're going to try to steer them away from that and try to do different ones and try to explain to them that, we don't want, all the same trees. So, kind of take a variety out there. I don't think it's fair just to, just go start plopping trees at, in people's, area. The other question I want to ask before we even get to that, can you handle if we would move where applicable to get them out of our right of way and into their front yards and give them to them?
Yes.
I would.
Yes.
Well, there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
The pros, of course, out of the right of way, and then you don't have the root issue with the sidewalks and so on. The cons is that then they're their trees, and then they can do what they want with those trees at any given time, and or are they going to maintain them? That's the question.
Are they going to be what?
Are they going to maintain them? Are they going
Well,
to
they would have
trim
to.
them?
It would be, we would, that would be theirs to me. No matter what, even with these trees that we're putting in, we're going to put out a letter to them that it will be up to them to help water them and maintain them. Similar to what we did when we took them down
boulevard. So the
on
trees-
even on the boulevard. They're going to have to help out because we don't have the capability of watering them. So they're going to have to help out. The thing I look at is the maintenance cost down the road. I mean, is huge for trimming and all that stuff. So
But what if people say, I don't want one in my front yard. My yard is too small and it's going to give me too much shade, so I don't want it. So now
then
all
we
of a
don't.
sudden,
Then we
They don't have a tree.
I believe we have a form ready to say, that if you want to pass on a tree, you can pass on one too. I mean, some of these people in their side yards may not want one either because I know one of the people there, they use their side yard, they have no backyard, so he already asked. The side yard is where their kids play and they do all their stuff. So he even asked, do we need to replace both of them? You don't like one. So I guess that's up to the homeowner if they want to opt out. Then we just say, here's a form, sign. Hey, here's your chance.
But then we also get into the issue because we have, for new developments, we have our tree requirement, and they're required to put X number of trees in the boulevard. So then we're going to have to change that policy then.
Why? So you made Woodland Cove put all these trees in.
Right.
A bunch of them are dead. No one's going out and saying, Woodland Cove, go replace all these. I mean, we have trees. There's a good portion of dead ones that have
But that's-
still been
There's
replaced.
hundreds of dead ones out there
I mean,
and dying.
So I don't think we should waste money putting trees in people's yards if they don't want them.
No, I'm not saying that.
I mean,
No, if they don't want them, that's fine. I'm just saying. But if we have a policy that says when a development comes in, they have to put X number of trees in the boulevard, but now we're saying we're going to remove them, obviously the dead ones, but we're not going to replace them. We're going to put them in people's yards if they want. So then we need to go back to our policy and change our policy. So then when a new development comes in, we don't put them in the boulevards, we put them in their yards.
That would be a great policy.
Okay, so that's...
We hate them in the boulevard for several reasons. And I'll spell them out to you. Snow plowing, you can't bench. They die. What's underneath them? Power, telephone, cable,
Well, then
fiber
that's-
optic is all buried in that area. So, they're really hard to replace and maintain. To get them out of there, it's...
Well, then we need to, again... So
But
we just
would
need
you need
change
to,
that.
or would you just, as we go, do what we're doing here? That development's 25 years old. We're replacing these trees. Does it really matter in this area? The ones that are there, were a lot of them we're going to have to put back there because of just the way it's maintained and the way it is. But on some of these side streets like that, would it really matter for you have 30 trees that are going to be kind of out of
I don't know. Does
set
it?
different?
Sounds like we need to look at the policy.
If I may, I think if we have another development that comes in, we'll look at all of these things because a lot has changed since the master development agreement for Woodland Cove
Right.
to now. Just
And
like
for Hunter's Crest.
Hunter's Crest and all of those things. So if there's a new development that is proposed, we'll look at all of those things. And I'm support Gary. The boulevard trees are just problematic long term. If there's another solution where we could have them put in the same amount of trees but have them outside of the right of way, I think that's kind of what we would recommend.
And I don't have a problem with that. But then to Kathleen's point, if somebody doesn't want it there, or we end up with small yards because some of these lots are quite small, do they even want, it might be too many trees.
That would dictate the type of tree you put in too. Some of these
Sure.
trees are going to be huge, conceivably huge, with a huge canopy. I was impressed by the elm. When I saw elm listed, I thought, elm? I've cut down so many elm over the
Yep.
years.
And the Discovery is a great new hybrid of it, and it's a smaller version
And
too.
it's tolerant. It's only 40 foot. It sounds like it's resistant to most things or everything.
Yep.
So
Today it is. It might not be 30 years from now again, but who knows? We could add a couple smaller varieties if you'd like, stuff that would be basically more like under a power line type
Yeah, you
tree
might
if you
want
wanted to. We could do that.
Right.
Smaller and give them an opportunity. I could, easily add 2 different types of that.
So
And since we're taking out the oaks,
Right.
So if you put a tree in somebody's private property, and that tree falls on their house,
It's their problem.
They would consent to getting the tree planted
Yeah.
in their yard. So they'd own the tree. It'd be their tree.
They physically sign a waiver?
They would.
Yeah, we'd have to have a right of entry for our us to have our contractor come in and enter that. And we'd probably have Ron Beatty or Sarah write something up that would say, hey, here you go. This tree is now yours. You're maintaining it, blah, blah, blah. Legal.
That's
There
for
you go.
replacement trees, but let's just say to Jasper's point, if we have a new development come in, then the developer is responsible to put these trees in their yard. I mean, I'm assuming.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, then then the city doesn't have to get involved. Okay.
Because, I did put that, anything on, the developer warranty will, we
Right.
get that evaluated and have them, we always do that before turnover. But, like Ms. Refkin said, out in their area, there's at least 100 that are dead or dying.
Yeah.
And we're going to be responsible on the hook to replace them.
But don't they come with like at least a 2-year warranty in some of them?
That's what we're checking on, but a lot of these are beyond the 2 years.
And
You
they're
know.
not being planted well. They're going in the burlap sacks with all the metal still around them and just into a hole. Like we moved one in our front yard and it had been a year and the burlap sack was still completely there and there was metal all around it.
Yeah.
We cut it out, we took the metal off, put the tree in the backyard where it got some shade and now it's great. But I mean,
Yeah.
no one else is doing that.
Yeah,
All
right.
They're bad. I mean,
Yeah, the metal can actually stay. It's not so bad, but you need to slice open the,
yeah,
Right.
they're
You know,
not slicing.
cut
it.
the ropes off,
Yeah.
and you need to actually slice open the bag so the roots have a chance to spread out.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no. So I guess,
Well, we'll put Kathleen on it. She knows.
Yep.
No, just kidding. Kathleen.
I still
Yeah,
want that's it.
Yeah, just one.
and the other issue that we have with a lot of these
maple.
is the trees that the developers are putting in are, they go to the tree place, what do you got that's cheap and you want to get rid of? Because a lot of these trees, what are considered, park grade, which goes into a park out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
They've got issues. They're not straight. They've got, already have some cuts in them. They've got some wounds that didn't heal right. So, they're getting, cheap trees. That's the other thing that we should really look and make sure
Yeah, we
that
should.
when they're doing these developments, that the trees they're putting in are grade A trees, grade
And
number
that
one.
who's ever planting them are planting them correctly.
Yes.
It doesn't even matter if they're grade A trees. If they're not,
If they're
being
not,
planted
they're not planted right.
correctly,
they're not
then
gonna
they're
be-
not going to succeed. Yeah, flourish.
This new software that's going to be developed identifying all the trees, where they are, what they are, et cetera, is that our ownership of that software when it's developed or
Yes.
the database?
Yeah.
So then going forward, as we replace trees, we will be updating the database to say,
Correct.
okay,
Similar to what we do with the street signs right now. We'll be getting a GPS unit that we can use ourselves. Right now we rent one, but it'd be nice to have. So as we replace street signs, we take it and we update our cartograph system, put the new dates, what was removed, why it happened. We would do the same thing with these trees.
Yeah.
And just to clarify, it'll only be ones that are in public right away, so publicly owned ones. So if somebody would elect to put it on their property, that wouldn't be in there. So, but anything public, we would. Large stands of trees that are like in parks, those will be generalized as far as composition percentages of different tree species. They won't be individually marked. So if it's a dense canopy, they'll be kind of just assessed that way.
And I think once we have that inventory done, then I think we would be eligible to at least apply for grants and stuff.
Correct.
Because you need this inventory in order to apply for grants. So
Yep.
it's a good. I think it's a good thing to do. So yeah. All right.
So I think that answers my question. We got the 1.5 to 2 inch trees. We'll add 2 smaller ones. We'll have the hackberry in there. I'm assuming non-ash trees will be the same one under the same policy. That'll be
And mountain
that.
ash might be fine too.
Okay, I'll look into that
Look
too.
into that.
See what they have. The only thing, so where applicable, are we going to move out of the right of way where we can then and leave the opportunity up to them, to
Yes.
the homeowner?
Sure.
Okay, perfect. And what was my last one? Oh, did you want the homeowner to choose from the list, and then we
Well,
kind of see what everybody
I
wants?
think what you might have to do is so this homeowner, you give them this list. That homeowner, you give them a different list so that you get the variety. But
Can
if
do
you
that.
give the same list to everybody and everybody picks the same kind,
Yep.
you're going to have an issue.
We could do that. We could, and what we could do is we could add maybe a couple more varieties of the a ginkgo and a linden and give them some
Right.
different ones. So at least they're not the same variety of a linden, and
Right.
that's what we could change stuff around. So.
Or else you could say we're planning on putting this one in your yard, and then if they're like, no, I don't want that, then you give them the list.
There you go. Yeah.
Because I would assume most people probably don't care as long as it's not dropping seeds or whatnot in their
Right.
yard.
As long as it's not a crab apple.
Yeah, I mean, so
Yeah, I think that might be a better approach.
So just put have
Just
us.
say this is the one.
This is
that
what we're putting in.
putting in. Are
Yeah.
you okay with that? Sign off on it.
yeah, and then if they
Show them a beautiful picture of it when
Yeah.
it's full grown.
This is what it'll look like in 50 years. So we're moving the right way. Okay, yeah, I think that answers all my questions. Like I say, we'll start and get these ones done, and then when Lila starts, we can get her going on that inventory. And once we get that figured out, that'll be, then we can kind of go from there. What we're actually looking at a future replacement, because like I say, even tree to trees eventually will go. I mean, they're being combated now, so it'll really be an eye opener when we find out how many actual ash we have. So.
Well,
Without
and,
knowing the scope of that at this stage, are we developing a philosophy though? We've got, I don't know, are we talking 100, 200, 300? Are we saying, well, this year we'll take out this 50 and then that 50? We're not going to go out there with a chainsaw and buzz them all down.
That's the ultimate goal would be to do what a lot of cities are doing, and that is starting to take them down, like you say, year by year. There's over 200 alone on Hunter's Trail. Has over 200 ash tree.
Okay.
Now, what we would do is we would also space them out a little differently. We wouldn't be putting them next to the street lights like they are. We would eliminate 4 at each intersection because they're way too close to the intersections for sight lines. So the numbers will go down a little bit. But we'll space them out, and on those we would probably do, maybe some ginkgos on this block or something, kind of keep the blocks the same but different, throughout. So you have 4 of one, 4 of another, 3 of another type deal. So, but yes, that's the general concept would be is to start proactively changing them out. It's not
taking out the full 200, taking out
whatever it's
30
going to
or
be.
35,
Once we get this
yeah.
list, we'll kind of come back to you guys. What do you want? Do you want 30 a year, 20 a year,
Right.
50 a year? That'll be up to you guys to
Yeah.
decide what we do with it. But you'll have a kind of an idea of what's out there and what we're going to need to replace. So,
Okay.
and cost wise.
where else besides hunters do you know that there are a lot of them? Any idea?
Are there some in Turtle Creek?
There's Turtle Creek has got them. Everybody. I mean, they're all over. I mean, we've got them in the north end of town's got them in. I can't think of the name.
Oh, Jennings.
Jennings has it.
And
Jennings got a few. And
Bayside,
then,
maybe.
Bayside's got some.
But they don't
Creek.
have those. No,
Painters
they
Creek.
don't have boulevard trees. Jennings and Bayside don't have boulevard trees.
That's right. We have them in our parks.
Yeah.
So
Trying to think boulevard trees. Might be in.
we have some in. I know in Painters Creek. We've
Okay.
got some in there.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's there'll be quite a few that you actually, and what you don't think is in the right of way might be in the right of way.
Right.
So I mean, so
Yeah.
it'll be interesting. So with that, I think what we'll do is just kind of final synopsis, and then I've contacted nurseries today, kind of made them aware it's coming on. Tomorrow I will send them out the list of trees that we're looking for, kind of get their opinion. Hey, this is what we have, what's close, what do they have that matches these, get some numbers and pricing back. I'd like to get that back by the October 2nd or 3rd. I got
Third.
second. I think it's the 3rd, isn't it?
Yeah.
Meeting. Jasper probably take it for me. I will not be back. I would be out of town that day, that long weekend. So, but Jasper bring it back. We'll have some idea of what the costs are and who will be doing the workforce then.
All right. Sounds good.
Does the city remove the trees?
Everything's been removed. Everything has been, the stumps have all been ground. We planted seed. The grass is growing almost everywhere that we've done it. So the people are just waiting to hear from us what we're going to do. So.
And then one other question for Lila. We provide her a vehicle,
Correct.
and do we put her onto the insurance policy then? Is that how that works?
She would just be like a regular city employee under the insurance policy.
Yep.
She'd have, we gave them the forms for doing her background check and driving and all that. So she'd be, able to do all that. So, and one part of her job too, which will be nice, is she will be tree trimming while she's out there. She's doing Sedin Prairie, so she'll be shaping, especially young trees. Now it's the time to do it, not when they're 30, 20 years old. You're taking off a 4-inch branch. She'll be out trimming, bringing the canopies up, shaping, and really doing that. That's their forte. That's what they went to school for, is forestry. So it's kind of a nice added feature for us too. So
Great.
All right. Thank you, Gary. Jasper, PTO.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, members of City Council. We had a Personnel Committee meeting last Thursday to talk about this item. The reason it's before you is because Allie's been working on a personnel policy kind of global update. I think the last time it was globally updated was 2007. There's been a couple piecemeal policies that have been added. So this is just part of it, and it's something that we should at least have a conversation about as a city to see if this is something we want to move toward. So really, that's why we're talking about it today. Looking at this, I've done this before in a couple different cities, but really, from an employer standpoint, why do we want to do this? Why are we even looking at this? Couple reasons. There's a demonstrable reduction in potential long-term financial liabilities, just with the number of hours that an employee can have on the books at any given time. There's a management advantage, just an ease of management to not have to manage both things. So, for example, if there's sick time that's more than 3 days, we require a doctor's note and things like that, and we have to manage those things. And we still have to do that for FMLA-related items, but for a time-off component from a management supervisor standpoint, we don't have to do that. From an employee standpoint, it's just your time is your time. It's the flexibility piece. So really, what's being proposed is equitable to both parties, the employer and the employee. Just a recap quickly about what we have right now. So right now on page 1, you can kind of see there's 5 different tiers. As you get more years of service here at the city, you get more hours. We allow 160 hours to be carried over annually. And then at that time, 100% of your vacation is paid out in severance if you leave the city. Current sick policy, everybody, no matter what your tier is, gets 96 hours a year. And the carryover is 960 hours. And then as your years of service increase, the percentage of your severance goes up. So as you can imagine, we have some employees. I think Allie ran a report. The average years of service we have here for an employee is just over 11. So between 11 and 12 years. So that's pretty good. So you can kind of make an assumption that, from sick time that people will generally get about 30%. So that's kind of what we have right now. Moving forward, what the proposed transition is to have it all under PTO. The hours that would be proposed is no different than if you would just take your vacation and your sick currently and just combine them. So there's no increase in that. And the maximum accrual, we had a good maximum accrual. We had a good discussion at the Personnel Committee. Kind of settled in at 400 hours that you can have for maximum accrual. Allie did some surveying of some cities around our region or around Minnesota. The average came out to about 440 hours. We initially said 480 because it was half of the sick, but that was really the only rationale behind that. So Personnel Committee kind of came in at 400. And then, so the maximum on the books that you could have severance for moving forward for new employees would be the 400 hours. So you can imagine the maximum liability decreases by a significant amount. So from a city standpoint, there's an advantage financially long term. We're talking 10, 15 years down the road when a lot of the senior employees that have a lot of accrued sick time, leave, retire, that type of thing, you'll start seeing that advantage. So that kind of goes into the financial long-term liabilities. So Personnel Committee met. That's Pam, Lisa, myself, Brian, and Allie, and had a good conversation about this, and the group settled in on what was being there as far as the tiers going, or the tiers that you see in your packet, and then the max accrual. You can kind of see in the last page of the report just kind of that long-term liability. And that's the maximum. So that's looking at that 688 total hours is what people can have on the books right now. I think we have 2 people on staff that are at that right now. Actually more, because that's at the beginning of the year and you can accrue throughout the year. So, but that's the maximum liability of just over $1 million. If we would move with this plan, it would be a maximum liability of just over $600,000. So just a little bit over $400,000 in, it's not really savings, but liability reduction. So,
What is the accrual rate for a new employee? Do they automatically get this 176 hours when they start?
no.
No,
How do they accrue it?
per pay period. So it's like 6.7 hours per pay period.
Yeah, so Allie's here. I'm here. We can answer any questions. Allie's kind of the data bulldog that's dug into a lot of this stuff to kind of see what other communities do, what would maybe work here. I can talk to kind of rolling this over. What you'd see is if this would be approved, we're just kind of looking for direction tonight. We would incorporate it into the personnel policy. And then in the near future, probably month or so, you'll see that personnel policy as a whole come back. And I'd say it's 90% red lines right now because it's kind of outdated. But what we use is the League of Minnesota Cities. They give us guidelines. We basically incorporate them into our plan. So
Jasper, do you want to talk about the EAB? Just
oh yeah. So you might ask what happens with your sick that you currently have. That gets rolled into basically called something different, extended illness bank, that no longer accrues anything. So you don't lose it as an employee. So if you have 500 hours, it goes into this bank, but you can access it for FMLA related items. So if you're gone because of a sickness of yourself or a family member for more than 3 days, you can then access those hours and use those hours up.
So they wouldn't get it paid out either?
They would get it paid out at the time of severance, if they'd sever employment, at those accrual or at those rates that we are currently under. So if you're here from 6 to 10 years, you get 25%, 11 to 15, 30. So there's a number, the maximum, the value of that to the city right now, that'll always be, that's the cap. It'll always go down.
But then they also get 100% up to 400 hours.
there will be some employees that do benefit from this, but
Right.
the goal is to eventually have all employees off of the extended illness bank, and all the new employees will be on PTO. So eventually, as employees in sever employment, that would go away. And it is likely employees will access that EIB as well. I mean, even this year we've had a lot of people out for more than 3 days. So I think it's likely those will go down too.
What would what would prevent them from using their EAB hours versus using their PTO hours?
We need medical documentation that they are out on FMLA leave for an eligible illness, family-related illness, that sort of thing. So, for example, if someone has a funeral, they can't use their extended illness bank. If they have stomach flu for 2 days, they can't use it. So it's really FMLA eligible leaves that they can access that for.
Okay.
And likely they're out on short-term disability as well.
I think it's a lot of vacation for the 0 to 5 and even the 6. 4.5 weeks for a new employee seems high when you add in all of the federal holidays and everything else.
I do also want to clarify, this isn't strictly vacation.
Right, but it's vacation and sick time. And so when you title it all the same thing, I know plenty of people that will show up to work really sick and save all their vacation for when they want to do something. Like that's how it was when I worked. They showed up coughing and hacking to save their vacation time for when they wanted to be off work. It's going to happen. When you keep it in one bucket, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
No, and that's a good, I mean, it is. The numbers can be daunting. I think that was kind of surprising to
That's what
the
I-
personnel committee. But right now, I had Allie kind of compute some numbers for those 0 to 5 year, just to kind of see what the current usage is for vacation. So right now, the 0 to 5 year tier, they get 80 hours a year, and they're using 66 every year. So there's 13 hours that they don't use. For the sick time, they get 96 hours, and they're using 54 hours. So they're using up a good percentage of it, that means they're potentially carrying over, 40 hours of sick every year. So at that rate, it would take about 7 years to hit that max accrual. But so I guess the point is it is a large number, but the employees currently get it and they're basically using it for the most part.
Right, but their usage will likely change once it's all one bucket.
It very well could. Yeah.
So what do you want to do, keep the same?
I liked different brackets, basically. I did 0 to 2 years, then I did 3 to 6, then I did 7 to 11, 12 to 16, and then 17 and over. I changed the brackets, and then I changed the amounts of weeks. For 0 to 2, I did 3 weeks, which is 120 hours. So that's what I worked it off of, and that was just based on what I got when I started out at a new job and whatnot. It doesn't punish people who have been here over 12 years. I mean, how I did it, I did 12 to 16 years. They get 6 weeks of 240 hours. So it's still, they're still getting over the 236 that was there. So the longer you're here, you actually got more how I broke it up.
So you're more concerned with the
new employees.
the new employees
Yes.
getting too much.
Yeah. I don't have any concern with, like, I stopped at 17 because I was like, you've been here 17 years, you get your 280 hours and whatever. Like, so it was more
Like the 0 to 2.
the 0 to 2 and the 3 to 6, just dialing back how much we're, I guess, spending on new employees.
Yeah. Would you, I think I like that idea. Would you be okay, because really it's important to me that we don't erode the benefit of existing employees.
Well, no, it would
Kinda
all be going
locking-
forward.
Yeah.
Like the current
So-
employees would
So-
stay with, like, it would work. I guess they grandfathered into whatever bracket type thing.
So Waconia did this. They basically have two different tiers. One, line in the sand, kind of like existing employees would do what's being proposed. New hires, non-union hires, would then do a different kind of table in tiers. So that's something that we could look at, but it would lock in the proposed paid time off policy for existing employees. It would just be as described, I would say, because I don't think we wouldn't recommend to do anything if it was anything less than what's recommended, because it would be, I think, perceived as an erosion of benefit to the existing employee. Which,
You know what? Could you send your thing to Jasper, because that might be something we should look at. But I think what we also want to do is incentivize good employees to stay. So I think that kind of does that. So when you hire somebody new, they come on board and then they look at it and they say, oh, if I'm here 10 years, 5 years, or whatever the number is, I can get X number. So it might incentivize people to stay. And it costs money to hire and it costs money to train. So it's to our benefit to have them stay. But if you do 0 to 5 and they get 4.5 weeks, and after they're saying, well, 5 years from now or 4 years, it's going to, they get the same amount. So that might be a better way of looking at it. So send that to Jasper so we can look at that again and then maybe come back with another thought.
yeah, I mean, we could. I think the next touch point will likely be multiple iterations of personnel committee meetings with the personnel policy before it actually hits city council, so we can incorporate some of those things in there. Are you okay with the new tier, we'll call it, having a max accrual of 400? Is that a number that you?
I had it as 200 for the 0 to 2, and then 240, and then 300, and then once 12 years, I had it at 400.
Okay, so that's
So
also
that steps
tiered.
up
Okay,
too.
Steps up.
Everything steps up.
Yeah,
Okay, send that over.
yeah, we can look at that.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, like, lock the current employees into what's being proposed in this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to punish any
Okay.
of the current employees. Although pending this, some of the current employees might want to switch over to this because at a certain point they get more vacation time with
Yeah, we'll
what
have
I
to-
have. So
We'll have to look at that to make sure that there isn't any differences for some of those employees. Like, I would never say the new employees would get a better benefit than the old employees. So we'll have to look at that. But yeah, send it over.
okay,
And then what we do is just schedule some future personnel committee meetings.
Sure.
And then
Yep.
incorporate into that and all the other changes.
okay.
Yeah, and we'll be looking at the whole personnel policy.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
This is kind of one of the first steps.
Yes.
Any other comments? Good. All right. Thank you. I think that concludes our work session, so we can be adjourned, and we have about just a little under 20 minutes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, Kathleen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ann. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 5-0. We'll be back at 7 o'clock for our regular meeting.